Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're going way back, exploring some really fascinating historical records.
Yeah, from the Cūḷavaṃsa. It's a Sri Lankan chronicle.
Oh, right, the one you share with us, yeah. And it's packed with stories of monarchs and, well, ambition and intrigue, wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
So we're going to uncover some of those events today and try to connect them to the bigger picture of Sri Lankan history. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. So to start, it's not just like a dry list of kings and dates, right?
Right. It really gives us a glimpse into the cultural and religious landscape.
Of the time.
Yeah, like a window into how these elements intertwine with the lives of Sri Lanka's rulers.
Okay, cool. So let's start with King Gatusina. He was known for his ambitious architectural projects. What do those projects tell us about his reign?
Well, Datusina was responsible for some incredible things, like the
Yeah.
Cūḷavaṃsa, a massive reservoir.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, that still exists today. Imagine the scale of this project in ancient Sri Lanka. It provided irrigation, but also served as this symbol of royal power and benefit for the people.
So the Cūḷavaṃsa also mentions a vihara, possibly connected to the hair relic. You flagged this in your notes, so it seems like this connection is particularly interesting to you.
It is. Vihara complexes, Buddhist monasteries.
Right.
They were at the heart of Sri Lankan society. They were centers of learning, religious practice, and community life. And the potential link to the hair relic adds another layer. Relics, especially those tied to the Buddha, held immense spiritual significance in Buddhism.
So we have Datusina, this builder king, connected to a powerful religious relic. Seems like a potent combo.
It really does. It speaks to how intertwined religion and politics were in ancient Sri Lanka. And this connection becomes even more dramatic when you consider how Datusina's reign ended.
Murdered by his own son. Kassapa.
Oh.
That's shocking, even for a historical chronicle.
Yeah. The Cūḷavaṃsa doesn't shy away from these darker aspects of power. Ambition and palace intrigue were common. Kassapa's actions set off a chain of events that deeply affected the kingdom, especially for Datusina's other son.
Moggallana.
Yes.
He fled to India to escape Kassapa's wrath. But before he left, he enshrined the hair relic, which had been brought from another land. Why is this detail significant?
Well, Moggallana's actions highlight how relics were more than just objects of veneration. They were symbols of authority and legitimacy. Enshrining the hair relic could have been a way for Moggallana to rally support against Kassapa. And it's fascinating that this event might connect to another text.
The Cūḷavaṃsa.
Yes, which focuses solely on the hair relic's history.
Wow. So we've got ambitious construction projects, a king betrayed and murdered by his own son, and a powerful relic with its own intriguing story. It seems like these events weren't just isolated incidents.
No, not at all. They were all intertwined, influencing the course of Sri Lankan history. That's what makes the Cūḷavaṃsa so compelling. It shows us how individual actions ripple outward, creating a complex web of cause and effect.
Like a historical domino effect.
Yeah.
And speaking of consequences, Kassapa's actions led to years of turmoil and eventually foreign occupation.
Yeah.
That brings us to King Vijayabahu's mother. He had the daunting task of expelling the Chola invaders from South India. You highlighted this period in your notes. What makes Vijayabahu's victory so significant for you?
Oh, it was a turning point. The Cholas had controlled parts of Sri Lanka for decades.
Wow.
Their presence had a huge impact on the island. Vijayabahu's victory wasn't just a military triumph. It marked the restoration of Sinhalese rule and ushered in this period of cultural and religious revival.
That's a powerful legacy. And the Cūḷavaṃsa mentions Vijayabahu constructing two stupas, possibly linked to his parents' cremation sites.
Yeah.
What do you think he was trying to communicate through these structures?
Well, these thuparamas, as they were called, they weren't just memorials. They were symbols of Vijayabahu's devotion to his family, his lineage, and Buddhism, all crucial elements in solidifying his rule after the Chola occupation. It's a powerful example of how rulers used architecture to reinforce their authority and connect with the people.
So Vijayabahu emerges as a savvy leader, not just a military victor. He understood the importance of symbolism and religious devotion in rebuilding a nation. And that seems to be a recurring theme in the Cūḷavaṃsa, right?
Absolutely. The ability to navigate both the political and religious spheres was essential for any ruler hoping to maintain power in ancient Sri Lanka.
Okay, and next we have Prince Manapurana. You flagged his story for discussion. What about his tale stood out to you?
Well, the Cūḷavaṃsa tells this thrilling tale of his escape from rebels.
Yeah.
He used an unknown ford to cross a heavily guarded river, demonstrating strategic thinking and geographical knowledge. Even under pressure, the The region he escaped through, Cūḷavaṃsa, or present-day Corrales, was strategically important, known for its difficult terrain and role as a refuge for those evading enemies.
That makes me wonder if even the known fords were guarded. How did he find this secret route? Was it a local secret? Did he have allies in the region? It sounds like a real historical mystery.
It does, and it raises an important question about power dynamics in ancient Sri Lanka. It seems like local knowledge and the support of communities could be just as crucial as military strength. Now, get ready for a story that takes intrigue to a whole new level.
Intrigue. I'm all ears. What happened?
The Cūḷavaṃsa describes a king, unnamed this time, who used a rather clever and honestly slightly bizarre tactic to deceive his enemy.
Okay, now you have to tell me more.
He faked a rut discharge as a diversion while making his escape.
Wow, that's creative. And maybe a little gross, but definitely creative. But who was this mysterious king?
Unfortunately, the Cūḷavaṃsa doesn't reveal his identity or who he was running from. It's like a puzzle waiting to be solved. We can analyze the details, the location, and the political context to try and piece it together.
It makes you wonder if this could be connected to any of the rulers we've already discussed. Or is this a new character in the Cūḷavaṃsa saga? I'm definitely hooked.
That's the beauty of studying history, I think. Piecing together these fragments, looking for patterns, and trying to understand the motivations of these figures. It's like being the historical detective. And sometimes we're left with more questions than answers, which just makes it all the more intriguing.
Speaking of intriguing, we've seen ambition, betrayal, and strategic brilliance. But you also mentioned the role of Buddhism. How does that factor into the Cūḷavaṃsa narrative? It seems like Buddhism is woven throughout the Cūḷavaṃsa. It's not just about kings and queens, though, is it? We also see glimpses of how everyday people practice Buddhism.
You're right. The Cūḷavaṃsa doesn't just focus on the royal court. It provides insights into the lives of monks, the monasteries, and the daily rituals that shaped people's lives. For example, it mentions that even while undertaking massive building projects, King Datusena also focused on supporting the Buddhist monastic community. He even made sure that monks in smaller monasteries received rice gruel in their own viharas. So they didn't have to travel to the larger Mahavihara complex for it. Rice gruel was a common medicinal food.
Interesting. It shows a level of detail and consideration for the monks. What do you think this reveals about Datusena as a ruler?
Well, I think it suggests that he understood the importance of the monastic community and wanted to ensure their well-being. Remember, viharas weren't just religious centers. They were also hubs of learning, healthcare, and community support. So by supporting them, Datusena wasn't just fulfilling a religious duty, he was also investing in the well-being of his people.
But the Cūḷavaṃsa also mentions Datusena's displeasure when he learned that monks in smaller viharas had to go to the Mahavihara for rice gruel. You circled this passage in your notes. Why did this detail catch your eye?
It hints at a hierarchy within the monastic community, with the Mahavihara holding a prominent position. This detail raises questions about potential power dynamics and maybe even rivalries between different monastic groups. It makes you think about how these dynamics might have played into the broader political landscape.
So even within Buddhism, there were different levels of prestige and influence. Could that have created tension or conflict? Did it ever spill over into the political sphere?
Those are fascinating questions, and honestly, the Cūḷavaṃsa doesn't give us all the answers. It offers clues about the complexities within the monastic community, but it's up to us to analyze the information and try to piece together a fuller picture. It's like a puzzle with some missing pieces.
Okay, let's see what other pieces of the puzzle we can find. We've talked about political intrigue, religious devotion, and strategic maneuvering. What about the cultural landscape of ancient Sri Lanka? What can we learn about that from the Cūḷavaṃsa?
The Cūḷavaṃsa offers some wonderful details about cultural life. For example, it mentions Datus's construction of a trench filled with water lilies around the city.
Oh, wow.
This likely served both defensive and aesthetic purposes.
That's a clever combination of beauty and practicality. I can imagine this magnificent city surrounded by a moat of fragrant water lilies.
The Cūḷavaṃsa uses vivid imagery to bring these historical scenes to life. It speaks of palaces adorned with precious stones, gardens filled with exotic flowers, and grand processions through the streets. These descriptions give us a sense of the opulence and splendor of the Sri Lankan court and how visual symbols were used to project royal power.
It sounds like we're getting a behind-the-scenes look at a royal drama. We have these lavish details, the constant political maneuvering, the religious rituals. It's all coming together to paint a fascinating picture of life in ancient Sri Lanka.
And the Cūḷavaṃsa doesn't forget about the human side of history. It's full of tales of heroism, betrayal, and even humor, like that king who used the rut discharge as a diversion. These stories remind us that history is made up of individual lives, each with its own triumphs and tragedies.
And speaking of tragedies, King Datisina's murder by his own son is a stark reminder of how ambition can lead to terrible consequences. Do you think Kassapa ever regretted his actions?
The Cūḷavaṃsa doesn't delve into Kassapa's emotional state directly. However, it does describe his reign as one marked by fear and paranoia, which suggests that his crime didn't bring him peace. It's a classic case of ambition gone wrong and a reminder that the pursuit of power often comes at a heavy price.
It's a powerful lesson about the nature of power and the consequences of our choices. And this ties back to another important theme in the Cūḷavaṃsa, the concept of karma. It seems like that belief permeated Sri Lankan society at the time.
Absolutely. The idea that actions have consequences, both in this life and the next, was a deeply ingrained belief in ancient Sri Lanka. It influenced everything from personal decisions to matters of state. The Cūḷavaṃsa shows how even a king wasn't immune to the laws of karma.
So we're not just reading about political events, we're seeing how philosophical and religious beliefs shape people's actions and understanding of the world. What else does the Cūḷavaṃsa reveal about the social structures of ancient Sri Lankan society?
Well, it provides valuable insights into the economic activities of that era. The Cūḷavaṃsa mentions trade routes, the export of goods like spices and gems, and the use of coinage. These details help us understand the economic systems that sustained the civilization. It also gives us a sense of the diverse range of professions that existed.
So beyond the royal court, we have farmers, merchants, artisans, soldiers, and many others. It helps us envision a society that's complex and interconnected.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that our understanding of this society is constantly evolving as new evidence emerges and historians reinterpret existing sources. History is an ongoing process of discovery and reinterpretation.
So the Cūḷavaṃsa isn't just a static text, it's a dynamic source of information that can spark new questions and challenge our understanding of the past.
Precisely. It's a journey of exploration, and each new discovery helps us paint a more complete and nuanced picture of the Sri Lankan past.
You also mentioned the Cūḷavaṃsa shedding light on social welfare. In ancient Sri Lanka, what details stood out to you?
The Chronicle mentions the construction of hospitals and the provision of alms to the poor, suggesting that compassion and care for the less fortunate were highly valued. These details reveal a society that, in some ways, was surprisingly progressive for its time. It's fascinating to see how systems of social support were already in place centuries ago.
It challenges our assumptions about what life was like in ancient times. We often think of it as a brutal and unforgiving world, but the Cūḷavaṃsa shows a different side. A society that valued compassion and took care of its most vulnerable members.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that history is full of surprises. The more we dig, the more we realize how much we still have to learn about the past and how much it can teach us about ourselves.
It sounds like we could spend hours unpacking all the details in the Cūḷavaṃsa. But as we move towards wrapping up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways you'd like to highlight?
The Cūḷavaṃsa offers a wealth of knowledge about Sri Lankan history. It's a reminder that history isn't just about dates and names. It's about the stories of real people, their ambitions, their struggles, and the choices they made. It's about understanding the forces that shape societies and the enduring themes that connect us across time.
And what about the way the Cūḷavaṃsa portrays its rulers? It's not always flattering, is it? It seems like the Cūḷavaṃsa doesn't shy away from showing both the good and the bad. It celebrates the achievements of these rulers, but also acknowledges their flaws, their moments of cruelty and the consequences of their actions.
No, it's true. The Cūḷavaṃsa reminds us that even kings and queens were human, subject to the same temptations and weaknesses as everyone else. It's not a romanticized version of the past, but a more nuanced, multifaceted account. It presents a realistic view of human nature and the dynamics of power.
So we've explored the lives of these fascinating monarchs, their power struggles, their architectural feats, and their relationship with Buddhism. What can we take away from all of this? Why does it matter to us today?
Well, the Cūḷavaṃsa is full of insights that resonate across time. It reminds us of the enduring power of ambition, the importance of strategic thinking, and the complex interplay between religion and politics. It also highlights the human capacity for both great good and great evil, and the impact our choices have, sometimes for generations.
It really drives home the point that history isn't just about the past. It's about understanding ourselves. And the forces that shape our world today, those patterns of ambition, religious influence, and clever maneuvering, they repeat themselves throughout history.
Exactly. By exploring these stories of those who came before